We are rolling. So,
Okay. IOU. IOU is an arts company, and we were formed in 1976. Most of the members of the company at that point were sort of either trained in fine art or music, and we wanted to bring together those different skills to produce a form of art that was less familiar then, that sort of was neither particularly theatre or from the gallery world. We wanted to create a new sort of area of work, along with a few other companies of that period. We were trying to redefine, in a way, notions of what theatre could mean, and it was by combining those art forms in a way which didn't necessarily start from a script. It was much more of a visual or music starting point. We were trying to define a new way of making work. Where did the concept of rear view come from? Well, that has evolved over a few years. I think the first thoughts of it were about 4 years ago, thinking of the idea of this bus as a way of transporting an audience around, to be able to take an audience to unusual places, unusual locations. And we have always sort of tried to make the experience for an audience unusual. So we want to put work on in places where people don't normally see theatre. And we had the last live performance show we did, we transported the audience around, and we hired buses so that we could go to different locations. And so this bus has really been an idea waiting to happen really since 1976, where we could actually have the bus as a place where people sit, and we can move them around to anywhere that a bus can go. That can be our location. And from that has evolved the particular themes for IOU, themes for rear view, which have evolved from the idea of working with a number of outdoor theatre festivals around the country, and thinking of ideas that could work with that within that context. Yeah. Well, the central premise of the story is the idea of following the life of a woman who's lived in that particular city or town, and we begin that in a live class, and she is in her 60s or 70s, and we hear her thoughts, and then her thoughts are taken over by her younger self, and her younger self takes us out of that life drawing class onto this bus, and we take a journey around the city, in a sense visiting places of her past, but in fact it is the future of her younger self that we're seeing. We're following the journey of her younger self, so everything in a sense is in the future. So there's that ambiguity between whether we're looking back or we're looking forward. So, rear view begins in a live class because that seems the most it is, it is literally a revealing place to start. Someone reveals themselves to the audience as a naked person, and what we see, whether we're male or female, we see a version of ourselves, and that is a version of ourselves that that has been around ever since humans began. The first cave paintings were of a human hand, and just that sort of context, beginning right at the very beginning of the story, and about being a human and how we cover ourselves up to present ourselves to the world. But this story begins with us revealing ourselves to the world, and so it feels like a very, very interesting first point to begin with, to begin the show, so that nothing is concealed, and we are on that journey, revealing to the audience a particular life story, a version of our life story of a human in a city. We are working with two young women, performance poets or writers. I'm not even sure if they like the term performance poets, but the interesting thing, what I found very interesting about them, is the fact that they do perform their poetry extremely well. And what I liked about the possibility of this really sort of storytelling process with Cecilia and Jemima is the fact that the words come from them and we are seeing them present the words. So there's no interpretation of someone else interpreting their words. They've created the words, and it's their imagining of their life in the future that we're actually hearing and seeing. So it feels as if it goes straight to the centre of the words that they've written. So there's no interpretation involved. It's their imagination. And we go straight to that through this process. The key elements of the making of Review. Well, it's difficult to know where to start because there are so many aspects to it. There's both the narrative that Cecilia and Jemima have created, and that has evolved out of just that concept that I've just been talking about. But in order for the audience to engage with that, we've produced this bus and also other technology, which is a way of hearing what the poets are saying. So the audience on the bus will all have headphones, and we're working on a system where the headphones are positioned so that where we are in a town, there are sounds that we've created which may be real or may be invented by us, which is specific to a particular location in the town, that as we drive through that location we can hear the sound of that world, which is another layer of narrative, as well as words. There's the sound of the city that we can hear, and as well as that, we're also creating technology where wherever you look, the sound seems to stay in the same place. So we've taken on board the idea of both creating this bus, which is a huge undertaking in terms of making it possible to drive along on the roads legally with a very safe bus that's been passed by all the tests, and create a whole new technical world for the headphones, bringing that together with the words of the poets has been a very complex combination of things. But, how does the location-specific element of the show reveal itself? Well, the content of the show has been written about life in a city, in a town, and a lot of those elements are repeated. Whichever town you go to, there's certain elements which are the same, and so the narrative that's been created will tend to fit wherever we are in that town. But there are elements of each city which is particular to that location, and we may tweak the words a little bit here and there to work in with that town. But I think for the people whose town it is who are travelling on the bus, just seeing it in a completely different way, in this sort of way, will make it fresh for them. They'll see it in a new way, and they'll see it with that layer of the narrative placed on top of it. So I think the fact that it's not written for every single city, it is, each city will have it will be very different for each city we go to, because it'll have different meanings. The same words will, in a sense, have different meanings wherever we go. How does review differ from other location-specific work? Well, I think it has become, it gets harder and harder to do site-specific or location-specific work, because of sort of there seem to be fewer spaces where you can do it. It gets harder and harder to get an audience to a place which hasn't already been made for theatre, for health and safety reasons. That safety is a high priority, and so it becomes more and more expensive to produce work, location-specific work, for a fair number of people to see it at the same time. So a seated audience, creating a show for a seated audience, becomes more and more complex. So one of the things about this bus is that it solves that in one go. All the safety aspects are built into the bus, so we can take it wherever we want. And that in itself is a new feature of IOU, that we will keep this bus, and we'll be able to use it in lots of different situations. But it opens up things that we've, in a sense, always wanted to do. So being able to change scene very quickly in a show. We just drive to a different place. In the past, you either have to recreate a scene conceptually, or with detail, or what's being spoken, or the audience has to walk to another place. With this, it's just fantastic, because we can just move to a complete 1 minute. We can be in a park with trees in the background. The next minute we can be in the back streets of a town behind, anything behind Tesco's or B&Q, or the sort of that layering this onto quite mundane things that we encounter every day, I think is a really interesting proposition, that we would find it very difficult to do a live show, say, in a B&Q car park, because there's just too many complications to that. But if it's just a small scene in a show, suddenly we can be outside B&Q, and the scene can take place in a place that a lot of us are very familiar with. So all those, it just opens up a whole new way of presenting work, which is just not possible in any other way. How will the audience respond to the review? Well, I think the number of different elements that they'll be subjected to will be very interesting. I don't know how they'll respond. That's the exciting thing about it, is setting up this combination of very different, both the technology of the bus, the beautiful words that have been written by Cecilia and Jemima, soundscape and music which have been written by Monty Adkins and Susie Green. The combination of so many things, it will be quite there'll be so much to take in. I've no idea how people are going to respond to that. I can't wait to see what it's like. But that's what's exciting about working in this sort of way, is that we just don't know. And what we're trying to do is something different and new and exciting, and putting things together as carefully as we can and as safely as we can, and trying to see what the result will be. So I'm looking forward to seeing how people react, because I don't know. How can I describe IOU in Rear View in 5 words? Well, I think it will be unexpected, it will be exciting, it will be moving, it will be exciting. I can't think. I think maybe that will be enough, really, to be kind of both exciting and unexpected and moving is maybe as much as you can expect, and that if it does that, I will be very happy.